All right, we're back with part two of our discussion of the horse dealer's daughter, and it's nice to get out of the house. So I thought I'd come out to a cemetery to talk about the very important, one of the essential scenes of the story takes place, of course, when Mabel is at her mother's grave. But before we get into that, our doctor friend comes over to say goodbye to the brothers, since he's friends with them. We talked about his sort of connection with the people of the region, and he's sort of a very feeling person, but also kind of has that doctor's objectivity that you have to have as a doctor. And D.H. Lawrence is really into eyes. I read 4 D.H. Lawrence novels in a graduate class way back when, and I started to keep track of how many eye references he made, and in one novel there was like 1.8 eye references per page. So Mabel looked at him with her steady, dangerous eyes that always made him uncomfortable, unsettling his superficial ease. So there's something about her eyes that sort of cut through his superficial ease, his sort of everyday face that he puts on for his friends. Then there's a little talk about the brothers visiting prostitutes in town one last time. And then we get to our little sort of history of the Pervin family. The mother died. The mother died when Mabel was 14. Now, part of my graduate work was studies in suicide in literature. I had a professor who taught a class called Literary Suicides, and at the end of the semester he had a party called We Survived Literary Suicides. It was a good time. He was a nice guy. And a very dangerous age to have a major loss is ages 11 to 14. And research, psychological research has shown this. And Mabel was 14 when her mother died. Let's look at this paragraph very carefully. And she lived in the memory of her mother, who had died when she was 14, and whom she had loved. She had loved her father too in a different way, depending upon him and feeling secure in him, until at the age of 54 he married again, and then she had set hard against him. Now he had died and left them all hopelessly in debt. So that's a double hit for the mother, right? Or for Mabel. She loses her mother, who she was very close to at age 14, a horrible thing for anyone to go through, any young person to go through. And then she sort of replaces her mother, a little bit of Freudian thing here, Electra complex. With boys it's the Oedipal complex, a child wanting to replace the same-sex parent. And she kind of replaces the mom in a way, not in a sick or bad way. And then she gets replaced by a woman. The father remarries to a woman probably with a little money to try to restore the family fortune. And then the father dies. They're left without much money. Mabel then holds the house together. She gets to sort of be the mom that she lost. But now that she's losing that, right, there's big problems. This was an end. She thought of nobody, not even herself. That's depression. Mindless and persistent, she seemed in a sort of ecstasy to become nearer to her fulfillment, her own glorification, approaching her dead mother, who was glorified. As I said earlier, D.H. Lawrence is not exactly a subtle writer. Like, he's not tricky to figure out. The mother's dead. She's coming close to glorification like her mother. It should not have come as any surprise that Mabel attempts suicide. She went quickly, darkly along the causeway, heeding nobody through the town, to the churchyard. So she doesn't want to talk to anybody. She moves quickly. There she always felt secure, as if no one could see her, although as a matter of fact she was exposed to the stare of everyone who passed along the churchyard wall. Nevertheless, once in the shadow of the great looming church among the graves, she felt immune from the world, reserved within the thick churchyard wall, as if in another country, the country of the dead. Carefully, she clipped the grass, so she tends to the mother's grave very carefully. She washes the grave, she clips the grass, trying to still tend to her mother. It gave her sincere satisfaction to do this. She felt an immediate connection with the world of her mother. She took minute pains, went through the park in a state bordering on pure happiness. As if in performing this task, she came into a subtle, intimate connection with her mother. For the life she followed here in the world was far less real than the world of death she inherited from her mother. Oh my. Now, I think it's very healthy to visit cemeteries and to connect with people you've lost and to think about them. Very healthy and important. We don't do enough of it. So D.H. Lawrence has to write this in a way to really show that this is something a little different with Mabel. She followed her, for the life she followed here in the world was far less real than the world of death she inherited from her mother. So the world of death, of absence, is more real to her than the world of the living. Along comes the doctor, right? And he sees her at the church, and he is sort of spellbound by her. His name is Ferguson. She lifted her eyes, feeling him looking. Their eyes met, and each looked again at once, each feeling in some way found out by the other. Her large, portentous eyes. It was portentous. Portent. Sort of imply something portentous, something big is coming. As if he had drunk some powerful drug, he felt delivered from his own fretted daily self. So these two have a very strong connection, right? Very strong connection. He's really mesmerized by her. Is it love? I don't know. What's love? Anybody out there know? It's something. We'll call it that. It's something, all right. So before we get to the pond scene, let's just talk a little bit more about this. Mabel's history here that I just went over with you. Things that go pretty well. They're on a successful horse dealership, horse farm that her father owns and operates. And then her mother dies when she's 14, a huge loss. She sort of fills the gap. She loves her father in a different way than she loved her mother. And then she loses that when the father remarries. And then she set hard against him, right? She set hard against him. But there's still something there until now that she loses it. Here's a good line. She would always hold the keys of her own situation, mindless and persistent, right? Mindless and persistent. So, sort of unlike the brothers who are going into harness, who are just sort of like whatever, they're giving up on being independent, having some agency in life. She will always hold the keys to her own situation, and she just refuses to be taken in by her sister. She refuses to even think. I don't think she's even considering anything what she's going to do. She's really at a wall here. She's really hit a wall on this, and it's very, very sad. And the only person who really has any genuine concern for her is the doctor, who has this sort of, well, he's into her. He's into her, to say the least. All right, good. So actually this is a short segment, but we'll actually wrap up part 2 here. Very important, her going to the cemetery, tending to her mother's stone, really worshiping the stone, the cemetery, the mother. Again, not necessarily an unhealthy thing, though the fact that she feels more alive in the world of the dead, that probably is a sign that there's something not quite right, something very sad here about Mabel.